All right, we're in chapter 11, and we're looking at what a distribution center or a DC warehouse will do for us as we place them or as we plan for our distribution network. I mean, we're looking at how do we best serve our customers, and so we need to take in consideration the benefits and some of the disadvantages of warehousing and distribution centers. So the role of a distribution operation or a distribution center is acting as a holding place to help us balance supply and demand. In essence, we would really like demand to match supply, or supply to match demand, and have 100% customer service level and not make any extra inventory, but just enough that all the demand is met. In reality, we know that doesn't happen. Even if our forecasts are good, we know they're not accurate, and we have demand uncertainty. Weather can hurt us or help us. It's just we have a lot of variation in our demand. So we need to stage our inventory in various places to help us mitigate the uncertainty in our demand, and while maintaining a high level of customer service. Now, we don't want 100% customer service. Normally, to get that kind of level of customer service, we just have to have too much inventory. So we need to find a good balance between enough inventory and enough warehousing and DCs and the demand. So we have this kind of game that we play. It also allows us to have a place if we decide that we want to take advantage of some purchasing bulk discounts. We need a place to store the extra inventory before we use it until we sell it. It also helps us with our production if we decide we want a longer production run and save on setup time and those extra costs associated with the number of production runs we're doing. So we're decreasing the number of production runs but increase what we produce in each one. Then a DC or warehouse allows us to hold that inventory, both to feed the production run and the finished goods inventory. It also helps us when we're trying to take advantage of full truckloads instead of less than full truckloads. So there's a lot of things that the warehouse and the distribution center can help us do. Now there are four main things or four main functions that a distribution has. The first is this accumulation, and all that means is I place purchase orders or I have orders that are coming in from different factories, and I'm just receiving those into the DC or the warehouse. Sortation is where I take those things that I'm receiving and place them in the proper storage bins or storage area. If I'm sorting for a place for like a grocery store, then I'll take the fresh fruit and put them not in the frozen but in a cooler. And we have frozen food that goes in the frozen section, and then we have our dry goods and that kind of thing. So everything has its proper place. That's our sortation. Now allocation is we have this inventory, right? And we know what our inventory is, and then we have customer orders that come in directly from the customer or from our retailers. And we will allocate that inventory to those orders so that when other orders come in, they don't think we still have that inventory. So it's allocated inventory. And then this assortment is the actual going out and picking the various items to fill those orders, and we package them and send them out. So assortment is getting them together. There are some more trade-offs than what's listed here, but I'm just going to talk about these two trade-offs. The cost of distribution centers and warehouses versus inventory, and the cost of transportation. So, and we'll see in other slides, you'll have a visible representation of this. But we know that the more warehouses we have, the more inventory we'll have. And we're kind of we're duplicating inventory storage locations with the increased number of distribution centers. But that helps us in many ways. It helps us be able to, again, utilize our transportation more effectively and reduce the cost of transportation. It also helps us fulfill our customers' demands more quickly. And so the cost of the additional facilities, and the facilities also mean inventory versus the level of customer service. The more inventory and the more distribution centers, the better level of customer service, but those cost money. At some point, the cost of lost sales doesn't outweigh the cost of the infrastructure. So this is just a graphic of what we would have, and this is supposed to represent the savings in transportation. On the left-hand side, we have all these different factories with their associated retail spots. Now, if they all just directly supplied the retail slots, we'd have these factories shipping directly to each one. So we'd have, instead of on the right-hand side, the factory shipping directly to the DC and the DC to a retailer. So that's 2 truck trips for one retailer. We have, 5 truck trips for each retailer. So you can see how we can really consolidate on transportation. That's an important thing that we gain through a DC, and that's one of the reasons we have them. This slide is looking at some of the ways the DC helps us. We might have, and I think of Starbucks. We have a lot of different Starbucks shops in the area. Some of them sell more coffee than fruit. Some of them sell more cheesecake than fruit. In other words, each retailer has its own needs and own customer push. And if we have a central distributor or DC, one of the things it can do is mitigate the randomness from all the retailers. So it's kind of like a buffer zone for all that. So instead of factories having to react to all the different inventory demands, they just feed the DC, and the DC can handle that for them. Now this slide is about the additional roles that we might play. It's a busy slide, but I'm just going to go over it quickly. Assembly services. Now sometimes the DC will handle this, and sometimes it'll just happen at the retailer. If you think of Walmart, they're one of the people that will have the retailer actually do a lot of this assembly services. So we'll ship all the parts for the bike to the actual retail store, and then at the store they have room there to assemble this. A lot of retail stores, especially in inner cities, don't have that space. So what we'll do is have the assembly services happen at the DC and then ship the full bike over to the retailer. Inventory management and visibility. Sometimes when we get to the retail level, visibility becomes tricky. If you've ever bought something and they couldn't scan the code right, and so instead of scanning a code that said this is one Parka red of this type, they just put a generic Parka in there. So then our inventory at the retail level gets kind of weird. If we have a retail, or if we have the DC has a good, they don't have those type of problems. So their inventory management and visibility is a lot better than what we have at the retailers. And it's usually up to the minute. I mean, when something leaves the DC, it's actually scanned out. So we have inventory management and visibility. Product kitting. This is what we do when we're, like, if you order anything like that you have to assemble at home, or if you buy something from IKEA, what they'll do is they'll take all the parts and put them together and say, here they are. Now you go home and put it and build it. That's kitting. So that's something that happens at the distributor. Product postponement is something that you'll see a lot with electronics. At one time, I know, like, a big TV manufacturer would supply to Costco, Best Buy, Walmart, Target. But instead of marking each, I mean, they'd be selling the same TV, exact same features, everything came off the same production line, but they'll wait to see who they're going to sell it to, or who has the order, and then they'll put a model number specifically for Best Buy or for Costco, and that was to get away from all the price matching. So if you came up and said, hey, Best Buy, I can get this cheaper from Costco, will you match that price? Well, what's the Costco model number? You give it to them, it's like, no, that's not the same TV, that's a different TV. And they didn't have to price match. That's one example of product postponement. So we're not going to put the tag or the model number on the TV until it's ordered, and then we'll do that at the DC. So it's close, so we have some good response time. Production sequencing. This helps us with just-in-time delivery. In other words, we need a place to stage our material outside of the manufacturing plant. And by staging it correctly, we can get the flow into production a lot more quickly and make it a smoother production run. Recycling, repair, and return management. Sometimes DCs will do that. So we'll get a lot of returns at the various local chain stores, and they'll just, when the truck comes to deliver new stuff, they'll just give it to the truck. The truck goes back to the DC. DC unloads it, checks it, sees if we can repair it or recycle it, and then we'll either trash it, give it to Goodwill or something like that, or repair it. So that's some of the roles of the distribution center. Now, warehouses can do this too. So this is some graphs of just various trade-offs that we have at the warehouse or the DC. If you can see on the first one on the very left, logistics costs versus number of warehouses. So as the number of warehouses go up, transportation costs go down, right? Because we can use full truckloads. But at some point, the equilibrium where at some point we're not saving as much money. So where those two lines cross is normally the lowest costing. That's where we're looking for. Where do we get our lowest cost between the number of warehouses and our transportation? The next one is looking at the cost of inventory and the cost of warehousing. You can see as the number of warehouses go up, so does the cost of inventory. The last one, we're looking at warehousing and the cost of lost sales. And remember, the more warehouses we have, the more inventory we have. So more warehouses, we're better customer service, we're better at, they're staged closer to the customer, so we can respond better to the customer. The cost of lost sales go down, but warehousing and inventory costs go up. So those are some of the main trade-offs we have. I think that'll be it for this part, and I'll pick it up in part 2.